What a weekend of South African schoolboy rugby we have just witnessed. First of all, a massive congratulations and thank you to all the coaches, players and schools for producing such unbelievable entertainment. Honestly, I had so many goosebump moments and I probably drove my wife mad saying, check this try, check this kid, check how exciting this is. That is just how good the rugby has been that even she is slowly getting into it. So just again, thank you so much for producing such wonderful entertainment. Now first, let's start with the game of the weekend for many people, including myself, which is of course the Garsfontein versus Stalenburg game. Garsies were down 20 points to 0 and then somehow came back to win it 21-20 with time up on the clock. What a comeback. Neil de Kok scores the match winner and then Ruan Flux steps up with ice in his veins, slots the conversion from out wide, and wow, just what a win. Now, I must say, as happy as I was for Garsfontein and seeing the elation on their faces, my heart also really broke for Stellenberg. You know, I have been on both sides of games like that. I have experienced that massive high at winning at the depth, and then also in my final high school rugby game, we lost in a similar fashion to Stellenberg. And it is truly a horrible feeling. But I must say that the lessons that you learn from those highs and lows are truly priceless. And it's only years later that you realize that those moments teach you some of the most valuable lessons in life. Now, that Garsfontein versus Paul Boys High game on Monday now looks like an absolute cracker, while Stellenberg will desperately want to bounce back against Grey College. Now, one thing that is very clear this season is the comeback culture. Teams are not giving up. We are seeing momentum swings and we are seeing dramatic finishes all over the country. If you think about the Paul Boys High Outeniqua game, looked like Outeniqua had it in the bag, bam, Paul Boys snatches it at the end. In this game, it looked like Stellenberg had it, and then bam, Garsfontein snatches it at the end. So it's really cool to see this comeback culture in our rugby, and the teams are playing till the 80th minute. Then the next game that I want to look at is the Paul Roos versus Monument. Now, Paul Roos raced into an 18-point-0 lead. Looked like they might blow Monument away, but Monument fought back really well and made a real game out of it. Now, that is probably the most encouraging thing for Monument supporters. They might not be winning every game, but they are competing properly against some of the country's top sides again now. Now, the truth is this Paul Roos side from 2026 is incredibly entertaining with ball in hand. They are expressive, confident, and very, very dangerous indeed. And I have to mention Travis Pfeiffer again. The way he runs just continues to remind me of New Zealand fly-offs like Isaiah West or even Carlos Spencer. If you don't believe me, go and watch this clip from, on the Supersport Schools website. You can see the highlights of the game. And then at 2 minutes and 50 seconds in, you can see him running with the ball. There's one moment just before the halfway line where he attacks the line, glides through the defenders. That just really reminded me of Carlos Spencer. He does this little goose step, and it was just a carbon copy of what Carlos used to do back in his day. And it's really refreshing to see one of our South African fly-offs run like that, because it's something that you don't often find in schoolboy rugby. Now, I must say, from the other results from day one was that Paul Boys High beat Jeppe quite convincingly. Many people thought that it might be a close game, but that wasn't the case. Paul Boys High beat them quite convincingly. But the game that really caught my attention was the Waterkloof versus Diamantveld game. And the reason why I say that is that I'm just loving this season that players are not just kicking the ball back anymore. Teams are attacking from deep, they're counter-attacking from their own try line, moving the ball quickly and looking for offloads. And this Waterkloof versus Diamantveld game was another great example of that. I really enjoyed watching Alexander Griesel from Waterkloof at fullback. He is absolutely full of running and always looking to inject himself into the game. His first instinct is to run with the ball. And there's one moment in particular where the ball is kicked deep into his own 22. The ball rolls just basically under his own post. He picks up the ball, and instead of kicking back like we would have seen 10 or 15 years ago, he starts to counterattack and probably produces one of the tries of the tournament by just counterattacking. And that is really refreshing to see. And then also Diamantveld's Brits, he also scored an absolute cracker, running a beautiful line. And I just thought that this game in particular, this Waterkloof Diamantveld game, was just a fantastic advert for attacking rugby. So if you haven't watched this game or seen the highlights, go check it out. There are really some beautiful tries in this game. Then we get to the big game from day number 2, which was the Affies versus Oakdale. Affies emerging victorious 28 points to 17. And I think this game was exactly what we expected in many ways. It was tough, it was physical, and it was dominated by the fours. But what really surprised me was how Oakdale managed to turn the tables on the Affie scrum. You know, for years now, the Affie scrum has felt like one of the certainties in life. But Oakdale did not just compete, they out-muscled one of the most fierce scrums in schoolboy rugby, in my opinion. And even without Mgedezi there, they completely dominated that set-piece battle. And that says a lot about this Oakdale pack and the work they have done down there in Riversdale. Now, other notable performances from the Noord Suid tournament from day 1 and 2 include Menlopark. They emerged victorious 46 points to 28 against Boland Landbou, and they have an extremely dangerous backline. And Danie Bothma at 13 was simply outstanding. He lit up the festival, scoring 3 tries and having a hand in 2 others. And he is quickly becoming one of the names that people are talking about this season, and he is making a serious name for himself. So please keep an eye out for this kid. And then there's also, of course, Lamla Mgedezi. He just keeps on scoring every single week. At the Noord Suid, he was once again sensational against Helpmekaar, scoring 3 tries. Now, that's it for the Noord Suid Festival day 1 and 2. Day 3 and 4 will continue tomorrow, and I will make a short video on that later in the week, so please check that out. Now, moving over to the Oakdale Festival, I think the most notable or standout result over there was Brandwag beating Marais-Viljoen. And that is especially a standout result because Marais-Viljoen, they were a former Noord Suid participant. Now, at the Glenwood Festival, Hilton remains unbeaten, and they continue to quietly put together a really strong season. And then in some other notable results from around the country, Rondebosch had a huge win, okay, over Tygerberg, okay, while and they have a big game coming up next week against Pretoria Boys High, and Bishops are also still unbeaten, while St Andrews have now suffered a 3rd straight loss. Now, overall, what can we say about this weekend? To sum it up, we are seeing more attacking rugby, more comebacks, more young stars announcing themselves, and more teams refusing to give up. And if this is anything to go by, the rest of the season is going to be an absolute cracker. Now, as always, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments which game or player or moment stood out the most for you this weekend. And if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and then I will catch you again in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.